Welcome to the Life at Next podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me on.
It's nice to see you, Theresa. So thank you for coming on. So do you want to tell us all about what you do in Next? What part of business you in?
So I work in finance. So
Nice.
I think I'm your second person on the podcast now. I think Carl was on a few weeks ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Good
Yes.
memory. Good
Yes.
memory.
So I work in the same section as Carl in finance. So I'm the financial controller for payment and operations. So effectively, a large part of my role is managing our suppliers. So that can be from onboarding a supplier. So for example, say we want to bring a new particular product on our website or sell in our store, and we need a new manufacturer to do that. We need to onboard that supplier with our product teams. So that's where my team comes in effectively.
Big job then.
Yes, because we have around 8,000 suppliers that we manage
That many?
within the team, yeah, and we onboard around 2,000 a year. So kind of big numbers.
Yeah.
So effectively, we work with the business to get this supplier onto our systems and onto our processes effectively. Because essentially, once we've got that supplier on, that then allows our product teams to go and raise the contracts to order the stock to get it into the UK and onto our shop floor effectively. So our role's quite critical in that. You know, if we don't do what we do in onboarding the supplier, we can't get those lines out for our customers to buy effectively. So we work with the business to get suppliers on board. Once those orders are in by our product teams to our manufacturers, they'll create the stock, produce the stock, send it to the UK for us to then sell to our customers. And at that point, we'll get an invoice that we need to pay for that stock. And that's where my team will pick that invoice up and effectively pay it and make sure that our suppliers are getting the money for the stock that they've produced for us effectively. So that's kind of the sort of chain, if you like, of how things work. So quite a critical part of really how the business runs. And if we don't do our job properly, effectively, we're impacting the end consumer ultimately. So I have around, in my team total, about 70 people. So
big team.
Big
then.
team,
Big
yeah.
team.
So I've got 55 here based in Enderby at the campus here. And then I've got a team over in Pune, India as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we deal with around 1 million invoices a year that come into the team.
That's a nice number.
Big number, yes.
Nice number.
Yes, and it's something that, we have to keep on top of. It's really important that we do pay our suppliers on time, for the business and for the supplier ultimately. So it takes a lot of effort by the team. We do pay over 90% of our suppliers to time as well, and that does, that's good for the business. Things go wrong, sometimes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, sometimes 100%. The suppliers get things wrong. Sometimes we get things wrong, and, that's sort of my team's job to work through that and ultimately make sure our suppliers get paid. So a large part of my team is doing the sort of payables and the supplier aspect of that. And obviously we pay other suppliers, So for example, we'll have suppliers for all our coat hangers in the stores.
Yeah.
The energy companies that keep the lights on in our business as well. So a whole sort of raft of different types of suppliers we support on a day-to-day basis. And also we work with the brands as well. So you think of the sort of 800-900 brands we've got. Yeah.
Oh, so not just anyone that's classed as a TP client or a licensed one. The ones that just sell on our e-commerce platform.
All our sort of brands. When you go on our website that you could buy from, we interact with those businesses as well because they are suppliers effectively of that stock for us to then sell online and overseas. So. Yeah, so we deal with, some quite big names and it kind of makes the job quite interesting. When you see an invoice come up for a brand, you think, I quite like their shoes or their clothes or whatever. So it's really, really nice kind of group of suppliers that we're dealing with on a day-to-day. Then we also have a sales ledger team. So I don't know if you remember, Carl spoke about how we are selling wholesale stock into international territories now. And
as a way to grow in that country and offer our clothing there, all products,
Absolutely, yeah. So if you think about the US market, we've got partners there that allow us to get our stock to market effectively. And what my team's job with that is once that stock's got over to the US and we're able to sell it through our partners, it's our job to go and collect the cash and effectively invoice those partners for that stock and bring that revenue in for the business. So I have a team that do that kind of work as well. We're about 1,000 partners we support, and a lot are overseas. Yes,
that many. Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't have said it was that many.
Yeah, so
in all different territories and countries. Yeah,
all different territories, different types of models. We might be selling our stock through franchise stores, for example. So we have quite a sort of large group of partners we support there. And we also support the business in onboarding new partners. So when we want to go into a new territory, we'll work with the teams in the business to actually look at that partner and say, right, well, how will we invoice them? How will we collect the cash for that particular stock? So we're actually involved much sort of early on in that sort of relationship, which, again, it just makes things a lot more interesting for the team. It's not just about handle turning and doing lots of transactional things, which we do. We're actually adding value because we're supporting the business in actually driving some of these opportunities, particularly in the international market where, we really are expanding somewhat. We're finding that we are supporting the business with that, which is really good.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I was thinking when you said, I've got 70 people in my team, and I was thinking, like, not being like, I was just thinking, I wonder what they're all doing. But now you've explained it more. It's not the nature of the payment, it's the nature of all the relationships and all the things and the quantity as well that you've got to deal with because obviously, like, I've done it myself, with being here, like we've got an email provider that helps with all our internal emails. We have to set that down. That's just one. Yeah. And you guys are doing that for every single department in every single part of the business. So I can actually see quite quickly how this scales up and turns into being a real important part. Because like you say, if that then breaks down and payment stops, no service, no product, no what, it's all done. So that really answers that for me in terms of, the size of the team and what they do. But it's got to be key then, hasn't it, for them to be able to have those relationships and communicate as well. Yeah.
And then, that's very much where, I'm trying to take the team forward is we do more partnering with the business and our partners because we can use technology to process the volume. But as I said, not everything we don't have happy path on everything that we do.
No, it's not one size fits all, is it? No,
absolutely. So we try and automate and we try and get straight through, processing of our invoices. But the reality is we have a complex supply chain. So, it does take a bit of analytics and thought to actually understand where the bottlenecks are and be able to ultimately get things paid and collect the cash. And I think one of the things I try and really encourage my team is, don't think all I'm doing is processing invoice all day or dealing with supplier queries. Actually, you are supporting the wider business in, what it's trying to do day to day and future growth as well, which is, really, really critical.
Yeah, big time. And it's the more you say about it as well, because I think when a lot of people say finance, they probably just think of an accountant, a traditional accountant. But it's not really, because I know speaking to Carl and other people in finance, there's so many elements to it, isn't there? And this is just one of it. It's not, and the way you're phrasing it is quite good actually, to say, look, it's not, we will do that, but we'll do automation as much as possible. So and I guess you're using some forms of like AI and stuff as well to support.
So that's quite an interesting thing. So we use robotics at the moment. Robotics to process our invoices and deal with queries and things. I think we've got around 10 robots processing volume for us. But we are stepping into AI now, and AI allows there to be sort of a bit more judgment and a bit more sort of, rather than having to hard code things in a certain way, AI allows us to actually throw more types of queries at it, and it learns and says, last time when this particular supplier invoice came in, I did X, Y, and Z, so I'll do that this time. So AI only actually gets better, and we are looking to deploy that into the team in the next few weeks, and that's going to be a bit of a game changer for us. And it kind of all forms part of the finance transformation that I know Carl talks about. Big project. So we're continuing to look at how we can do things better. But in the next 12 to 18 months, we will have a new finance system, which, myself and the team are super excited about because, our systems are 20 years old in finance and they served a purpose. And, we're a successful business and they've worked ultimately, right? But I think we've come to a point where we're outgrowing them. Yeah. And it's time to actually say, well, with all these new sort of partners we're bringing on board globally, how we wanted to do things better within the UK business, from a finance perspective, we need the systems to keep up with the needs of the business and where we want to go. So for me, moving to a new finance system is really good for us. It's going to be tough. It always is, right?
Well, it's change.
Absolutely.
It's change. Any sort of change is always tough. But like you said, it's exciting because if we've done this with, systems that have served a really good purpose for so long, now we're getting a better system. Yeah. Just think what we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And also I've got to think about, who the next future leadership are in my team, or people who are even going to do my role in the future. And I've got to think about, who I promote and who I bring into the team. And ultimately, it's the TikTok Snapchat generation. I'm probably
Yeah.
showing my age now, but they want to be using systems and apps and widgets and all various things because that's what they're used to in their personal lives.
Yeah, so
and when
true.
when you bring them in and they look at an archaic system, it's quite difficult to kind of get them on board to say, well, we are changing things. So I think once we start to move and transform, I actually think that as we onboard new people, they'll actually enjoy working on our processes and systems, and perhaps, like I say, they'll be the future really ultimately for us. So.
Yeah, it's such a key point there to make sure that the technology is reflecting the pipeline of candidates are coming in.
Yeah.
And what's your view on AI generally, because a lot of people are like, oh, I hate it and it's going to change that. But what do you see it doing just generally? Like, what's your view on it?
I think for me, sort of in the AP world, I think there's sort of quite a lot of routine things we do. And when you look at sort of in AP, what are the common reasons why we can't pay an invoice, for example?
What's AP, by the way?
Accounts payable. Accounts payable. So that's suppliers, paying our suppliers. So, when you look at how we pay our suppliers and invoices, for example, at the moment, the robotics that we use is very much hard-coded and it can only deal with when this happens, do this, for example.
Got ya.
Whereas with AI, it sort of learns, and so you can sort of throw more problems at it. And sometimes those problems are still routine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think for me, what AI allows us to do, again, do more of the processing, so it frees up the time of my team to do what I would say is the more interesting stuff, to do the partnering, to work with suppliers and the business to say, right, okay, what insight are we getting from things that we see? How can we support the business driving forward and let the technology do the processing? So I think AI has a place.
I agree.
And I know there's lots of scary stories out there about
Yeah.
AI in the future, but I think just, talking about today, I think there is a place for it, and it's certainly something, as I say, we are going to deploy in the coming weeks. So that's, that is quite exciting.
I'm totally on the same page as you, whereby there's so many things that even that I can think of my team doing that I'm like, there's got to be a way that this process or this thing can be better or streamlined.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it helps. And then the more creative or more problem-solving things that it can't do are left to the people to do.
Absolutely.
And then, again, feed that into AI and that can develop a little bit more.
Yes.
So
yeah.
It's a partnership, really, isn't it? Yeah.
And I think ChatGPT, that's a bit of a hot topic at the moment. And I think certainly there's a opportunity there to help us with some of our queries we get from suppliers, because they can ask standard questions like, when am I going to get paid? Where's my payment come from? Have you got a remittance advice, for example, to prove that you've paid us? These are common questions that we get. And at the moment, we're sort of replying back in emails to deal with those.
Right, time-consuming.
Yeah, exactly. And really, we should be focused on the real sort of nutty, difficult supplier queries rather than the standard, you'll be paid on X, Y, Z. So again, ChatGPT feels like a really good opportunity to be able to say, well, could we get sort of that to reply to emails, suppliers rather, in a professional way? And again, take that sort of routine processing away from the teams so that they can really focus on the more challenging things.
Yeah, that's so key. How did you get into Next then? What's your journey been? Where did that start?
So I sort of fell into finance really. When I speak to most people in finance, I think everybody does. I think unless you go for the more sort of traditional, I want to go to medicine and things, people decide much earlier on in their sort of teenage years. But for me, I was very much like, I think I'm all right with maths and maybe finance is where I should go. So I kind of did the less traditional route where I went straight into work. Trained as an accountant whilst I was working.
Nice.
So I've always been in finance, and I sort of started as a hardcore accountant, as I would call it, in my early years, and then started to find my way into finance operations, which is the accounts payable, the accounts receivable, collecting the cash, paying the bills. And that's where my career's always been. But I've worked in lots of different industries and other large FTSE businesses, but I'd never worked in retail. Right. So when the opportunity came to work for Next, with it being retail, I thought, that's a bit of an itch I'd like to scratch. So let's give it a go. And I think as well with Next, I've always been a customer of Next myself. I remember back to the days of the directory books. I think everybody had their makeshift coffee table, didn't they, of years gone by of directory books that used to come through the post. So I think for me, I've always been a customer of Next, and, it's a great brand, and it's a brand that you've seen just goes from strength to strength. And I think for me, seeing such a high-performing business and being retail, I just thought it feels a really good fit for me. And all the experience I've had working in other industries, I think, I've been able to bring into this role as well. So I joined a year ago. So literally it was my year anniversary in August. So
nice.
So I joined a year ago, and I mean, it's absolutely flown.
Has it?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I joined just as we were onboarding Jules, our TP partner.
God, one of the first ones then.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Yes. So I was right in the midst of that, which was quite a steep learning curve, trying to understand, how what next works, and then how do we sort of bring Jules into that. So really great time to join. And also it was around the results for half year as well. So
Key for finance. So having the opportunity to sort of see the half year results and Simon present them here at the campus was really good as well as being a new joiner. So that's how I kind of find my way here. And I said to somebody the day, I don't think I'd ever leave retail now or next, because you kind of, it's a bit of you get sort of into it and you think, there's so much to go after. We've done so well as a business, and we're still going for more, that no day is the same. And as I say to my team, you won't be bored working here. No, you won't. You really won't. There's a lot, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I speak to everyone. It's almost like we're doing such a great job and we're growing so quickly and doing so successful. Like, you only have to look at the product, the sales, the share price, the amount of people we bring in.
Yeah.
It all indicates to a really strong business.
Yeah.
But yet when you're here as well, you're like, this is all great. But then you're like, oh my God, there's so many opportunities over here.
Yeah.
So then you're like, where's this going to go?
Yeah.
And it's quite addictive, really.
Yeah, that is it. Addictive is probably a very good description. Yeah.
You're like, oh, right, well, we can do that as well. And we can do that. And we could do that. And, even from my personal perspective of when I was doing this, the podcast was always something I was thinking about.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there'll be a time. And then now we're doing it. And now I'm like, yeah, okay, right. And then how do we develop that? We were just talking before. I was telling you, weren't I? Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's going to change, and we're going to develop it a bit more, and we're going to hopefully get a new location and stuff. So that really, for me, is kind of, that is the ethos and the culture that you come into it with people. There's just all those opportunities to keep going after.
Absolutely. And I think, sort of going back to the podcast, we're such a big business. It's such a neat way, the podcast, to actually understand what everybody's doing. You just sit and watch it, or even when you drive and put it on, Spotify and have a listen in. Yeah, exactly. And, you can actually learn. I mean, it's been useful for me, because I'm still on a steep learning curve, even though I've been here 12 months now. Yeah. Still a lot to learn and understand, how this business fits together. So I think the podcast is quite a good educational piece. We should almost onboard people and say, right, watch the last 50 episodes of the podcast, and then you'll have a really good overview of next. So
I've heard that before, actually. There's a couple of people in our wider team, and they've said, if there's an area maybe someone's gone, I don't really know too much about that. It's like, maybe just watch this a little bit. You get an idea.
Okay.
And especially for your team, I guess, because I guess you deal with everyone, absolutely everyone, because it's all coming through that. Yeah. It's quite key then. Yeah,
we have a huge stakeholder group, really, in terms of, who we work with. I mean, even with Carl's team, for example, he manages the stock finance team. We're paying for stock. So as you can imagine, we're very closely working with them. So in the wider finance team, we're very much connected with a lot of people, but across the business too, in terms of, product teams are hugely important to us and things we're trying to do.
Cool
and
part.
So, even to the warehousing and distribution team. So we do touch all four corners. And I think, for people thinking whether I want to work in finance or not, actually, it isn't as siloed as you think it is. Like, if I go into finance, am I going to be shoved in the corner working on Excel? No. I mean, you probably will be working on Excel, but it's so interlinked with everything. And certainly, I encourage my teams to go and talk to the business and understand what's going on in their area, because it has a direct impact on what we're trying to do. So I think, finance for me, that's one of the draws for me, is actually it's so sort of instrumental to the running of the business, but also, you do get the opportunity to kind of connect out and understand how the business operates as well.
Is that what kind of then drives you in terms of like your career and stuff then? What is your like main driver? What's that always been then?
I think for me, when I sort of led my first team, which was a couple of roles ago, I think that's when I realised I liked the leadership angle on it. And, being able to create an environment for people to come to work and enjoy it and feel like they're making a difference really gets me out of bed in the morning.
Nice.
And, you know, I like my team to be innovative. I want them to challenge me. I want them to say, look, you know, there's a better way of doing this, Theresa. You know, we don't agree with you. We should do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
So I want people to come and enjoy it and not feel like they're just here just to turn the wheel and just come home and pay the mortgage.
It's
and
boring
that's
for
the end of it.
everyone as well,
Yeah,
though, isn't it?
absolutely.
Like boring for you, boring for them, boring for other team
Yeah.
members. It's like healthy challenges.
Yeah.
I agree, is really
Yeah,
good.
absolutely. So I think the leadership bit's been really sort of a big driver
Okay.
for me. And then just being part of a large business, successful business. When you work in finance, you can see all what's going on, and you know that gives you got a lot of energy actually, I think. So yeah, I think finance, people think it's maybe a bit of a boring place to work, but actually I think, you know, there's a lot going on and there's very much different flavours of it. You know, Carl will have talked about what he does in his team and what the rest, you know, there's about 300 of us in finance. So we're a large team and everybody's roles are very different. And I think that's the other great thing of working in a large business like Next in finance is you can go and work in the other areas of finance. And we do see that. We see people moving around. And I think that's great for, you know, up and coming people who want to expand their careers and think about where they're going. To be able to work in different parts of finance, you tend to gravitate to a certain area. You kind of have a go at different bits, and then, which is what I did, and I kind of ended back in the finance operations side of things. And that's where I've always sort of seemed to head back to. So,
But that's good, isn't it? Because you get a broader skill set as well.
Yeah.
And like you say, that happens in so many places. Like product do it loads. I know even in marketing and stuff. You know, I've moved from whole different departments and stuff as well. So it's kind of part of the brand as well. Really, like it's keeping that, like, you know, if it's keeping the best talent within the business, really. And I think we're really good at that. And then what we can do is bring more people in and upskill them and pass that knowledge around.
Yeah, and I think we've got a really good mix. I'd say that in my team, I've got people who've been with the business a long time, and they've got all that sort of history and they understand things. And you know, particularly when you look at some of our systems and processes, they are aged and they understand the backstory and the genesis.
It's like,
I
know what we can do here.
Yeah, absolutely. So you know, and so they come with that kind of experience, which is like gold dust, really.
Yeah.
But then it's great to bring the new talent in who bring the other sort of organisational views on how they do things. And we've done that. We've brought some new people into the team from the outside who bring that like a different view of the world. So I think having that mix works really well. And also, you know, we've sort of promoted people within the team as well. They've come in on junior roles and they've worked their way into our management team. And again, they're bringing the knowledge with them because they've done the doing and now they're actually running the team. So
they get what people are doing.
Absolutely.
Or thinking, right, that was a bit of a bottleneck, or that didn't really work. Let's change it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, and also we do a lot of training with our team as well, which is important. And it can be all sorts of training, not necessarily finance related. It could be things around resilience. It could be things around, you know, stakeholder management. You know, how you've got to talk to somebody in the business who's senior and you're a junior person. Actually, getting that kind of training, I think, is really, really important to be able to navigate around that. So, you know, training's really important. And also, it's kind of like the sort of sideways moves as well. You know, career's not always upwards. I remember reading a book saying it's like a gymnasium, your career. You know, you dart around at different sort of levels and stages. It's not sort of your career ladder necessarily. And certainly within finance, you get that opportunity to do those diagonal and sideways moves. Even within my team, I mean, we do so many different things. If you just wanted to stay in finance operations, you could be doing a different role to somebody who sat sort of near you. So a lot of opportunity, and I think certainly that's what brings me to this role and why I enjoy it so much.
Yeah, no, that's exciting because there is a lot of growth. There is a lot of growth in the brand. I think, you know, not just twofold really, growth of what the business will actually grow to be, which I think everyone always thinks, oh, we've got this like 10-year plan, and it's like no, we're a lot more adaptive and like finger on the pulse than that. We're not stuck in our ways. We know we go after things, and then if things go really well, we really go after it. And then the other side of growth is kind of the people side, where we're really putting emphasis on managers developing people, us developing managers. Us really trying to, you know, push forward what it means to grow Next in its people. So I couldn't agree more, to be honest. And in your first year, what do you think what's been like the standout thing that you've learned from Next? or just seeing coming into
Observation.
the brand?
I guess the big one for me has been the appetite for change.
Okay.
In a positive way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think, I have worked in organisations where bringing the business on board to do things differently takes work and takes a lot of convincing. Whereas I find here that I've not really rubbed up against anybody. When I've come up with an idea or my team have come up with an idea, nobody's sort of saying you can't do it. They might say you can't do it because of X, Y, and Z, but there's going to be another way, and we kind of solution and find another way. So I think my sort of big observation has been is everybody's coming from a good place.
Yep.
And everybody wants to be able to do things the best way they possibly can with the systems and the processes and the requirements of the business. And that sort of can-do attitude, I think, is really good. And it certainly helps it helps us in finance to keep up with the business, because if we were constantly saying, no, you can't do that, and being awkward and difficult, we wouldn't be able to push on with things. So, and so it makes my life a little bit easier that my team are on board with that. And also the business is on board with that. Even if I push back to the business and say, I don't think that's going to work, maybe we could come up with another way, people are open to have that conversation. And it just means that we can transform and push on at pace, which is, that's the other observation, is the pace here is...
it's quick, isn't it?
Fast.
It's quick, isn't it? Compared to... I've had a lot of people come into the team or the wider team, and I don't think, even if they've worked in retail, I think they've gone, there's it goes quick and there's a lot of stuff going quick.
Yes.
It's not like, right, I'm just doing this. It's like, do that, but, try and manage a few other things as well, all at a fast pace. Yeah. And I know I'm not trying to make it sound really scary. It's not scary. It's just the nature of the business. That's what makes it. That's how we're successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the pace, we need to have the pace.
We have to. Yeah.
I think, sometimes you do have lots of plates spinning and you've got multiple things happening and you want to do them all really well. So we have to manage that and make sure, we get the best outcome for it. But ultimately we can't sit down and rest on our laurels. Like, we've got a new finance system coming in the next 12, 18 months. That doesn't mean now we're going to just stop and say, well, we'll just carry on doing the business as usual, and then, we'll not worry about... We're like, no, is there a better way of doing things with what we've got, knowing we've got a new system which is going to massively transform things for the better, but 12 months is not a lot of time, really. So, it's good that we push on and we carry on with, supporting the business and, continue to go from strength to strength.
No. Well, I think that's a very, very good place to end it there. Thanks for coming on. I mean, that's great insight. And I agree with all the things you just said there at the end as well, because it is, it's really what the employer brand's about and what it is and the culture here as well. So 100%. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me on.
No worries.
Thanks, Matt.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.